Good evening, everyone. I want to welcome you to Community Crossfire. My name is Sam Guy. I'm your guest host tonight. I want to run through a couple of things with you. I want to give you a little bit of an overview of some examples of some of the things that I've been working on since I was elected to be a city councilman at large here in the city of Wilmington. I always tell you, don't let folks just show you the photograph. Make sure you see the video as well. What's going on over time. And so I said I'm going to take a few minutes and just give you some examples of some of the things I've worked on. But before I talk about what's been going on as a member of City Council, I just want to remind you of something. Back in 1997, when I was a city councilman at large and I chaired the Judiciary Committee, I passed a piece of legislation that put a deed restriction on a parcel of property, requiring it to be named the Leonard L. Williams Justice Center if anybody ever built a courthouse at that location. And as you all well know, that's been an ongoing fight since 1997. And last year, during this month, that courthouse had Leonard L. Williams Justice Center placed on that building. So this is basically the one-year anniversary month for that building getting its proper name. I don't even like to call it a renaming. It was supposed to have been named that from the beginning. The law required it, but lawlessness is okay when it's against a black man. That's just how we do things in America. If that had been a white judge, Judge Frykowski, they would have honored the law and put his name on there from the beginning. So it's a shame that he never had a chance to see it, but at least his name is there, because what Judge Williams stands for, among many things, is that he's the story of a local guy born and raised in Wilmington that grew up and did a lot of remarkable things to the point where the city fathers in Wilmington, Delaware thought it appropriate to require that a building would be named after him if it was built as a courthouse. And so I just want to remind you all of that. As you drive by there, I want you to notice his name there. And I've learned to be respectful and honor my elders. And so that's why I provided that leadership for that initiative and sponsored that legislation. And I appreciate those members of council back then who supported it. There was also a group of members of council who tried to oppose it, but they weren't successful. The next thing I want to talk to you about now is to get into, just to remind you of what some of the things are we've been through. As you all well know, Wilmington City Council started off on the wrong foot. In one of the very first pieces of legislation, prayer was stolen out of the agenda for Wilmington City Council. And so I'm just proud to share with you that I was the person who announced on that floor that I was going to have legislation drafted up to put prayer back in the city council meetings. As you all well know, there's been plenty of devilment going on in City Hall, and we'll get to that later. But we didn't start off right, and we're paying a dear price for not starting right. And when I say we didn't start right, the charter of the city of Wilmington required council to determine its own rules and order of business, and to provide for such committees as it deemed necessary, and to define the duties of our staff and to hire staff. And what happened is City Council basically operated under the rule of a dictatorship. And so the members of City Council, for the most part, just became puppets the president picked a whole range of 13 or 16 people that she wanted to hire and just hired them all. And the council was just a rubber stamp. And she drafted up rules that included taking prayer out, and council served as a rubber stamp. And we had a dictatorship, and we've been operating under a dictatorship. And as you all well know, we've had all these problems with money. My money was taken and distributed to her friends. All of these things that were done wrong at the beginning are now coming back to make Wilmington City Council look like an organization that just doesn't know what it's doing. But it's the president that doesn't know what she's doing. Some of us spoke up at the right time, but the vast majority of us went along with the wrongfulness from the beginning. The people who were on council a long time, they got given all the goodies, and they joined in doing things wrong. So Bud Freel got to be the finance chair. So that means he was responsible for every dime that's been spent improperly during this council. And he was the finance chair last council. And he's responsible in part, along with the president, for every dime that's spent. So when you hear a person saying they didn't know, they're not telling you the truth. And Loretta Walsh has been the pro temp this time and last time. She's the number 2 in charge. She's aware. And if they tell you they don't know, they should have known. But see, they get away with just saying they didn't know. So we've messed up from the beginning as a group of people. In addition to providing leadership to get prayer back, I also provided leadership to get City Council to agree to send communication down to Dover through a resolution that was passed telling Dover that local control is important to the people of Wilmington. Right now we have the lowest degree of local control possible, with our children split up amongst 4 school districts, a VOTEC district, and a multitude of charter schools. And because of that, the quality of the education that Wilmington children get is totally subpar. And we as Wilmingtonians have no say, no local control. So we're not even in a position to really fix the problems that are harming our children. It's really a disgrace. All of the adults that live in Wilmington, Delaware should really feel ashamed of what we're allowing to have happen to our children. We should all be ashamed. And the state really doesn't care, because they had promised to change some things and they didn't honor their promise. I also tried to provide leadership to have a judiciary committee created so that important legal issues and legal affairs could be monitored. The people who own City Council that aren't on City Council, our council is pretty much owned and controlled by a group of people, not the City Council itself. So we voted not to have a committee to help the community with issues that have legal impacts. And along with that, I provided leadership for us to have reports because of all of this money leaking out through the risk management and leaking out through the law department. And I put together a strong piece of legislation, given that I'm a lawyer, knowing what we as the clients on City Council need to know. And the president of council and the Bud Freel and the whole crew, they watered it down because they don't want the new council people to know nothing. And most of the new council people, not all of them, they vote and go along with folks who don't want them to know anything. Again, it's not everybody, but it's the majority. So I've never been around any group of people who are the bosses, in a sense, who tell the people who work for them what they want, and the people who work for them tell them they don't need it, and then they vote saying, okay, we don't want it. So I gave everybody on council the big thick report that the county council gets every month, and then we just got a little one-page report from the law department. They didn't tell us anything. What they told us, you could hit Google and find out. But this is what happens when the government is controlled externally and when you have a dictatorship and people are just following the blind. The blood's not on my hand because I warned them, but you all are suffering as the community. I spoke up for our children when they did their video, Don't Judge Me. I was involved in helping the young man that was on TV today who brought up the idea of the differential with respect to the age in the charter. And he explained something to me that made a whole lot of sense. And just because he's a young man doesn't mean that he can't have a good idea. And he came up with a good idea, and I was able to have it introduced on his behalf and explain it to the members of council, and he explained it, and we were able to get that passed, and now Dover knows that there's an adjustment that needs to be made. And so what I'd like to do at this time is I'm going to go back and play the Facebook post from my YouTube account that discusses some issues related to this money. So if we can go ahead and play that, then I'm going to open up the phone lines in case anybody has any questions or anything that they'd like to discuss. If not, I'll discuss some other issues as well.
Editorial titled Council Spending Needs Overhaul was printed on opinion page 16A of the newspaper version of the News Journal. The essence of the editorial is acknowledgement that the Watchman, Wilmington City Councilman at Large, Samuel L. Guy, Esquire, warned Wilmington residents, President Hanifa Shabazz, Wilmington City Council, and the Delaware Federal District Court, about problems with the discretionary and scholarship funds administered by Wilmington City Council. The newspaper editorial board acknowledged that the Watchman's warning was months before reporter Christina Jedra published her initial investigative report regarding Wilmington City Council discretionary funds. Hopefully, the next time a Watchman's warning is issued, it will not take as long for the matter to be properly considered. The editorial reads as follows.
Excerpts from the editorial read as follows. A mere 3 months ago, Wilmington City Council took one of its own to task for complaining about how the body allocates money from its discretionary fund. At-large Councilman Sam Guy may not have earned points for style. His fellow council members voted to censor him, but he was barking up the right tree. News Journal reporter Christina Jedra dug into how council members spend their individual discretionary funds. What she discovered is a $447,000 fund that is spent with little oversight and even less transparency. This is how discretionary funds are supposed to be allocated. Each year, members of the council allocate discretionary funds to not-for-profit organizations in order to meet local needs and fill gaps in city agency services. Thus, discretionary spending is a critical tool in meeting needs in our communities. As with all taxpayer funds, the public deserves to know that discretionary funds are going to organizations with the capacity and integrity to provide quality services. That passage comes from a 13-page guide to the discretionary fund process in New York City. Wilmington City Council has no such guide. In fact, the rules don't even exist in the city code. Instead, the council president distributes guidelines via internal memo. Consider this from Jedra's report. Unlike elsewhere in Delaware, Wilmington City Council does not have a limit on how much money any one organization can receive, does not vote on which organizations get grants, and is not obligated to share grant information among council members or with the public. Nonprofit agencies in the city, many of which provide vital services to thousands of Wilmingtonians, claw for every single cent just to keep the lights on. Grant money does not and should not come easily. It is not contingent on who you know. Council President Hanifa Shabazz defended the haphazard status quo. She said taxpayers can find out where their money is going by requesting documents through the Freedom of Information Act. The problem there is twofold. First, it is the council's job to show how the taxpayer money it receives is being spent. The burden should not fall on the taxpayer. Second, FOIA requests come after the fact. The check has already been cut. If council members truly represent taxpayers, they must immediately adopt and publicize strict guidelines to ensure transparency and fairness in the discretionary fund process. By immediately, we mean before even one more discretionary fund dollar is allocated. A month after being censured, Guy sued his fellow council members, accusing them of deception and denying him discretionary funds. The irony of Shabazz's reaction was not lost on us. She blasted Guy, saying his lawsuit would waste city taxpayer dollars. Until it proves otherwise, we find it hard to believe that council leadership is worried about wasting taxpayer dollars.
Trying to make it through this barreling, no, yes sir, but as I...
Hold on, I gotta find it.
Okay, everyone, I want to welcome you back to Community Crossfire. I'm Sam Guy, the host. I want to thank you for joining in. I hope you got a chance to understand that editorial that was recently placed in the News Journal. Usually what happens is when you are working on something, usually they don't mention that you were working on it. They try to act like you weren't working on it at all. But I guess in this particular instance, it was too apparent to everybody in the society that I was involved in questioning this discretionary money and scholarship money, particularly with respect to the fact that I didn't get any. That as with the 4 at-large people, Loretta Walsh, Cyril Poppity, and Rashima Dixon, the 3 of them received money, and they didn't give me any money. And so the details of all of that are posted and well known. And so, you know, I just have to kind of leave it up to time to see how this turns out in the end. But I still didn't receive my money from the past. I'm going to make sure that you also have some time to call in the event that you have any questions, because a lot has been going on with respect to this money and some of the things that are being questioned. And of course, my initial question was, where was my money? And I really want you guys to really understand something. See, who you put in positions of leadership really matter. Now, the Wilmington City Code does not say that the president of Wilmington City Council is the dictator or the boss. In fact, to the contrary, the Wilmington Charter basically says that all of the council people are equal. The only difference in being the president is that you preside at the meeting. Other than that, everybody's equal. So all of this stuff that you guys are reading in the paper, most of it really isn't accurate. There is nothing that's been voted on by City Council that says that each member of council gets $10,000 and the president gets $372,000. But this is the kind of foolishness that people can get away with when you have people that are new and half of them belong to somebody other than themselves, and then some of them don't want to listen when people who know what they're talking about tell them, and then some of them know certain things aren't right and they don't go along with it. But at the end of the day, the council has been controlled by a dictator who leads them to do wrong things and teaches them to do wrong things. We got a whole bunch of new young council people that are learning all of the dirty, rotten, ignorant stuff to do as an elected official. That's what they're being taught. All the little dirty tricks. How to steal another council person's legislation. How to take another councilman's money and divvy it up with your friends. How to sneak and take things out of legislation like prayer and not tell anybody. how to give money to people you want to give money to without telling any of your fellow council people, how to withhold legal information from members of council because you want to be the only one to know, how to water down legislation. All of these crooked things are what all the new people are learning. I happen to have been on a council before, and I worked with councilmen and state reps and Congress people with integrity that I've been working with my whole life from all over the country and here in Delaware. So I see the funny business when it's taking place. There aren't no whole lot of tricks that you can pull without me noticing it. And so, you know, the mess they tried to do with the change in the charter, where they tried the crooked stuff of trying to ask for a friendly amendment, which was designed to basically destroy the legislation. Like, that's some stuff you do on some Peabody in 12th grade high school student government mess. You don't do that when there's knowledgeable veteran people around. And even though most of the people are new, I'm not new. So a lot of that crooked stuff that folks want to do, they should at least say, well, wait a minute, we can't do that, and he's sitting right there looking at us do that. We don't have any business doing it in the first place. So we really have a really messed up situation. And you all might say, well, you know, so what? Well, see, the community is who suffers. So let's look at the money. Let's look at what this money is really all about. This discretionary money, the discretionary funds, that includes the scholarship money. Okay, so the president felt it was so important to show her masters that, yeah, I'm going to show this Sam Guy, I'm not going to give him any money. And then once he learned that you were doing something you didn't have no business doing and spoke up on it, then her masters told her, yeah, don't give him nothing. Show him. Teach him a lesson. He's not going to get nothing. And Bud Freel and Loretta Walsh were right there saying on the council, yeah, he don't get nothing. Loretta opening up her mouth on the council floor, and Bud's the finance chair. And the lady who deals with the money, that's his person. Marshall Bassnight, that's his staff person. All these people know all about all the money and how it was moving. And not just keeping the money from me, but giving it to the other people. And all this other stuff that people are now learning about. But because of a dirty, rotten effort to just say, well, we're going to mess with Guy because we don't want him to be able to help anybody in the community. We want everybody in the community to know he can't give anybody scholarship money because Hanifa, the big boss, I'm not giving him any money. So now, let's look at where we are now. I'm not the typical council person because I've been on the executive side, legislative side, I've worked with the courts. So I fought about folks keeping me from having money so I could give it to the young people who were asking me for it. It was so important to show the master that, yeah, we got him under control, master. We're not going to let him do nothing. We'll steal his legislation for you too, master. We'll steal his money. We'll do everything we can. We'll hold up his legislation. We'll not let him introduce his legislation. That's right, I have legislation right now that Hanifa and Freel and her cronies with Walsh, they just hold the legislation, say we're not going to put it in. They have the staff slow walk writing up the legislation. Now, I'm not crying because I know how to ball. I told everybody from the first night that if folks want to play crooked, I can play this game a whole new way. And if you all been paying attention, there was a council meeting where I told these folks that I keep telling you all about stuff you're doing that's not right, that you shouldn't be doing, and that I'm going to play this game a whole new way. Because I have tools in my toolkit that I thank the Lord for. The Lord blessed me to be able to get all types of education, to be able to understand all kind of things, learn all kind of things, And I try to take that and use it for the benefit of the community as a council person, and there's people hating. Now, I always have told people for decades, people don't try to hurt you for what you are, they try to hurt you for what they think you can become. So Freel and Hanifa and Walsh and their cronies and the people who own them, somebody's told them that they need to be concerned about what I can become. But I'm not like they are. I always focus on what I am. So my interest is being a good councilman at large. I didn't sign up and run for councilman at large and all I'm thinking about is trying to do something else. No, I'm trying to do this job well like I did it before. I did an exceptional job as a councilman at large before. You can go to samguy.net and look up my legislative record and you can see it. And Bud Freel spent the last several years on council. He was the leader in trying to take out my legislation from the city code. So Bud Freel kind of does to me what he did while I wasn't in council. He tried to remove my legislative initiatives from the city code. There's several of them. The same thing that Donald Trump is trying to do to President Obama. See? Trump is trying to erase Obama's legacy because he doesn't want the president's legacy to remain there. Well, that Bud Freel has always been trying to eradicate my contributions and block my contributions. And so Bud Freel went as far as to vote against Judge Williams having his name on that building. That's for some of you all who want to sit here and say, Sam Guy, he's my buddy, he cares about our community. Then how would he vote against one of your icons in your community being honored? But he didn't have no problem with Frawley's name going on Frawley Stadium instead of Judy Johnson. Oh, that's right, because Frawley isn't a black man. So Bud Freel plays all these games with all of you all, but he don't play games with me because I don't play games. He uses black people to mess with black people. He's made a whole career of it. He puts up black people to run against other black people. The state of Delaware, he's been appointed to a position in the state of Delaware for almost probably 12, 16 years, and they basically pay him, for the most part, to hardly do nothing except watch what's going on in city council. That's his main job, and to report back to them what's going on. But you all spend so much time looking at 5 cents and you don't see the game that's going on. That's why he didn't want to be a city councilman at large anymore. Because he was getting ready to lose because the black community had learned how to vote and get some of these at-large seats. So he decided to run for the 8th in a safe seat so he could then stay there and continue to rule over black folk because he owns half of them. But you all don't even really understand what's going on. You'd be shocked at some of the stuff if we go ahead and peel this stuff down to the next level. So I'm going to take a few phone calls, but Hanifa Shabazz, what I need you to understand is, I tell people all the time that I'm covered. I believe in the Lord. I'm covered. I'm trying to do the right thing as a councilman. I'm trying to do things to help the community. And so the people who try to rise up against me, they're going to be stomped down. That's how I feel and believe in my heart, because I'm trying to do the right thing. I'm trying to look out for the interests of the community. And so when I see somebody try to keep me from having $2,000 or $3,000, I know that in the court case they spent $400 just to transfer the case from state court to federal court. They hired an outside law firm, so I'm guessing that's $5,000 to $10,000. So they've been willing to spend somewhere between $5,400, $10,400 to keep me from having $2,000 or $3,000. That's how devilment is with President Shabazz and Mike Przicki and his lawyer. They're the ones backing them up. But see, the Attorney General just ruled recently that Hanifa Shabazz and the attorney for City Council, the attorney for the city who Przicki appointed, and Przicki, they was all part of illegal meetings in violation of the Freedom of Information Act. Don't forget about that ruling that took place. I filed that complaint because they were doing something they had no business doing. So whether it's the money, whether they're violating the FOIA, taking legislation, it's all kind of wrong stuff going on. But I also shared some of those earlier things with you because I'm working on issues. While people are trying to keep me from working on issues, I'm still working on issues. And I participated in most of the budget hearings. And if you saw those budget hearings, I made strong contributions and comments about the budget. It's a democracy, and you elected me to participate, and I try to participate. I try to go to some of these zoning board meetings and some of the committee meetings that take place. I try to go to a lot of those. So your Watchman is working. I'm not just watching, I'm working. I'm handling the business. So in order to take $2,000 or $3,000 from me, she was willing to risk the $372,000 that she thought she was going to get. Now I want you to think about, where does a person have to be when they know that they're about to get $372,000 because most of the other people don't know that it don't belong to them. So by default, they get to spend it because the other people don't know that it's their money too. And a person who's getting ready to have that money coming in felt it so important to mess with a person and try to keep them from having $2,000 or $3,000, but they messed with the wrong person. It's not that I'm no big bad person, but I kind of have a little bit of an idea when somebody's jerking me around. And so if she was really a smart person, she would have said to herself, well, wait a minute, I got $372,000 I'm getting ready to get. Why would I get in a big public argument with this man about money that's his and jeopardize my money? And now people are starting to look back and saying, hey, you've been doing all kind of funny stuff. So she's not even smart as she's taking stuff that she don't have no business messing with. She isn't even being smart about it. That's good, because it shouldn't be happening. And hopefully the members of council, you're going to learn something about this city council real soon, because that $372,000 that she thought she was going to get away with getting to spend herself, it's going to be very interesting to watch if these members of city council, given all that has transpired, are going to just sit back and not be at the table with respect to how that money's spent. And as far as I'm concerned, all that mess about CDC, we need the substantive help to address the issues found in the CDC report. The President of Council and Wilmington City Council, under her leadership, cannot be trusted to receive no $1 million worth of CDC grants and handle that money properly, because she's already proven that she'll mess with my little $2,000 or $3,000 for some reason that I have no understanding even what it is. So she's not to be trusted with that small amount of money. And now we're seeing that she's been distributing money from day one as a council president. Heck, the members of council, the new members of council, hadn't received their money, and she was giving people money outside of city council already. So Hello.
Hello?
Yes, thank you for calling Community Crossfire. How can I help you?
Yes. Is this lawyer guy that I'm talking to?
Yes, this is Community Crossfire. Thank you for calling.
Well, I want to ask you, when you first, this is Evangelist Mary Malachi. I usually don't give my whole title, just give my first name. But I wanted, when you first started talking about this money, I thought you were talking about a little bit of money. I had no idea that you're talking about something like $500,000 that was given to the president, the previous president of the city council. That it was that much money involved as far as transparency and knowing where this money is going. That should be done up front. That if each member is supposed to be given around the same amount of money, the nonprofit or whoever they're giving it to, a scholarship, it should be brought in public before the council, and they explain where this money is going to and for what reason, and also the agencies or the person that the receivee, the person that receiving the money, should say what they're going to be doing with the money in the beginning, and it should be an approval of all the council members. If you're going to say transparency and money to be properly allocated in the right manner.
You're absolutely correct in what you're saying. In fact, county council, I tried to tell the members of council that county council has certain laws to keep county council informed about legal issues, and I showed them what the county does. And I also know, because I spent 4 years helping Tom Gordon run Newcastle County's government, county council has a procedure just like you described when it comes to doling out money by county council. See, we got folks that just have been able to get away with doing things a certain way. And then when people say to them that you're not engaged in the best practices, you're not doing this the right way, then they get offended because they want to be able to do wrong too. It's amazing to see how committed people are to doing wrong if they see somebody else do wrong. When this all started out, it started out about $2,000 to $3,000. But all of the issues about the lack of transparency and all of that with how that money's handled, the issue's the same. It's just the dollar amount has changed. The conversation has changed from a $2,000 to $3,000 conversation about mismanagement and misuse and unfair distribution of what's called discretionary funds. All this money is all in the same pool of money in the budget. It's all in the same pool. All this talk about this money for this money for that, all that money, once it's passed in the budget, it's all in the same bucket. So everything you said is correct for all of the money that's in that bucket.
And everybody should be, everyone, if they're supposed to have money to everyone, it should be given to everyone. But I'll say this, God puts people into certain places many times just to let the masses of the people know that there are funds available to help people. I had no idea. I was born in Wilmington and property bought in Wilmington, worked in Wilmington all these years. And I had no idea until you brought up about this money problem that it was even available.
That's right. And when I ran for office, I said I was running to be the Watchman, and I said I was running because there was a lot of new people, and it was important to have some people sitting at the table coming in who was experienced and knew what they were doing and knew what they were looking at. And the Lord put me here now at this time for a reason. Otherwise, none of this stuff would have ever popped up. But thank you for calling, and I'm going to just keep on working.
I want to ask you, Mr. Guy, before I hang up.
And I want you to stay engaged.
Rectify it. What they going to do to rectify it?
Oh, something's going to happen. Pay attention. Yes, something's going to happen. See, you guys got to remember the Attorney General's office is already looking at the city of Wilmington because they just got ruled for having violated the Freedom of Information Act, having secret meetings. So the city of Wilmington's government's already on the radar. See, what happens is we have to fix our problem. But I already know once you see you got a whole crooked atmosphere going on, folks will agree to fix the problem, but then because the government's owned and people own a certain number of council people, they'll just have them vote to do wrong. They're not going to change their spirit and have a spirit of trying to do right and look out for the people. The spirit of the council and its leadership has already been established. Hello, thank you for calling Community Crossfire. So the rest of the people who want to do right, we're going to now have to continue in the fight for righteousness. Hello, how can I help you? Oh, okay, I thought somebody was there. But yes, the people who want to do right are going to have to force righteousness. Kind of like we had to do with bringing prayer back. But this council has already been set up where Shabazz and the mayor and Freel and them, they own 8 votes. So they can do whatever they want to do until some of those people decide they don't want to be part of all of this crookedness. And that's why I never panicked once I saw that they owned 8 and they were doing dirty, rotten things. I knew that it couldn't last. And especially when you start telling people this shouldn't take place, that shouldn't take place, and they basically, you know, act like they don't care what you're saying, it's not going to last. So it's already blowing up now. Community Crossfire, thank you for calling.
Hello?
Yes, this is Community Crossfire. Thank you for calling.
Yes, Mr. Guy. You know, I listen at your show come on Sunday evenings. I really, truly wished you would have had the position that you're taking now when you were working for Newcastle County government. But you keep pressing on. Have a good evening.
Okay, thank you for your call. And what everybody knows, no matter whatever it is that you're trying to imply, everybody knows that I'm consistent with my positions. And when I worked for the county, everybody knows in the county that Sam Guy was consistent with his positions and the things that I was responsible for. And so the Gordon administration did a heck of a job for the people of Newcastle County and for the people of Wilmington. So that was nice of you to try to imply something, but what you tried to imply does not apply to me. I'm one of the most consistent people you'll find. But thank you for your call. So it's always interesting how folks want to try to, in some sense, put some issue on the table to try to, I guess, change the topic. And maybe they're successful in doing that. But what I know is I'm the elected official right now. And I was an elected official before. And the public record is clear that I'm pretty consistent. Nobody's perfect, but if you see a doggone fight, you're going to see me on the side with the people. So if you see a fight you'll see City Councilman Sam Guy as an elected official with the people. You won't find me on the side with the people who's trying to hurt the citizenry. So that's what I have to say. And I hope that folks are learning. But the new people are learning how not to be honest elected officials. And I'm just hoping that that lesson isn't getting into their heart and soul. That's what I'm hoping. That's what my concern is. The people who've been on council, some of them who've been there a long time, they're going to be who they are. And they knew what was going on. They know how the system works. And now they try to tell everybody they didn't know anything. Now, one thing I want to say to you all out in the public is that all of these folks who's outraged about the way money was spent, now that the numbers are larger numbers, that same outrage should have existed when they were misusing and mishandling a few $1,000s when I was pointing that out about the money that didn't come to me that was supposed to come to me that was moved over to certain other cronies. Because what you basically do is, if you're not upset about that, but then you get upset when it's a larger amount of money, you almost encourage folks to feel like they can do funny business with the small amounts of money, but not to do funny business with large amounts of money, when they really shouldn't be doing any funny business with any of the citizens, taxpayers' money. So I find it real funny to see all these hundreds of people who were trying to badmouth me when I was pointing out about the misuse and the misappropriation and the poor distribution of the money, and they were actually, some of them were trying to attack me for bringing that up. And now some of those same people are running their mouth, and now they have a problem with it. That's inconsistent. I want to thank you all for joining me this evening. I will see you on the second Sunday of next month in all likelihood for Community Crossfire. Sam Guy signing out.